Chapter 8, Researching Environmental Problems, Part 2. To reduce the number of goods we create, we must shift from planned obsolescence and focus on repairable products. Also, developers are increasing the features of single devices so that we need fewer electronic products. For example, smartphones today, they play music and phone. They're also the phone and the TV and the computer, so they do multiple things. So we have fewer electronics, whereas in the past you had a device for each one of these things. As of 2022, government policies were put into place to levy a tax on manufacturers. Many cities, for example, have banned plastic grocery bags. In New Jersey, many stores you go into, you're not, able to bag your groceries in plastic bags like before. Some companies have made efforts to reduce waste, such as phase out of plastic straws even. We can recycle as much as possible and reuse or upcycle old products. We can shop at secondhand stores, benefiting charity organizations instead of buying new clothes and household goods. A concept known as virtual environmentalism can cause people to protect the environment without even thinking about it. And this benefits the environment even if we're focused just on finding a convenient and inexpensive form of transportation. For example, there are bike share programs, and people are often using fewer plastic bottles. They're using, the reusable containers for water and so forth. Government policies can contribute to virtual environmentalism, for example, making recycling more easy, using less energy and fewer plastic bottles, cycling instead of driving, creating, safer lanes, bike lanes specifically for bike riders, and public water fountains, including public water fountains. The environmental costs of powering our lives. Producing goods at an ever-increasing rate requires energy. Our increasing global demand for energy, coupled with the depletion of existing energy sources, presents new problems. Fossil fuels have long been a major source of energy, but present social problems during their extraction, use, and disposal. Fossil fuels are the fossilized remains of ancient plants and animals compressed and heated over hundreds of millions of years. Burning fossil fuels has been a primary source of energy, and humans have used up most convenient sources since the Industrial Revolution, 1760 to 1840. We've got coal, natural gas, oil. Harvesting coal from deposits deep underground using heavy machinery and collecting gas through hydraulic fracturing produce large amounts of poisonous waste fluid, which has caused earthquakes and has infiltrated water supplies. Harvesting oil requires massive oil rigs in the ocean and extensive transport pipelines. Spills from these oil rigs can be catastrophic to the environment. So, that, for example, what is used to clean up the oil dispersant? Are these oil dispersants safe for the environment? In 1989, the Exxon Valdez oil tanker spilled 10 million gallons of oil, coating more than 1,000 miles of the Alaskan coastline. So that caused great devastation on the environment. Nuclear energy is an alternative to fossil fuel. Nuclear energy requires handling and disposal of radioactive materials, which are released into the air and water during normal operation of nuclear power plants and remain dangerously radioactive for tens of thousands of years. Nuclear energy is efficient and does not contribute significantly to climate change when operated correctly. Nuclear power plants are generally safe and relatively clean. Nuclear energy is a potential, though controversial, alternative to fossil fuels. Though there are downsides to nuclear energy, many people see it as a necessary tool in reducing the world's dependence on fossil fuels. Renewable energy as a solution to increasing our energy demands. Renewable energy, also referred to as green energy, renewable energy provides other sources to meet energy demands. Renewable energy has only recently begun to be competitive with conventional forms of energy. For example, you see these wind turbines um, popping up, solar panels over parking lots and on the roofs of buildings. They're alternative renewable forms of energy. It is difficult to store and produce renewable energy on demand. So again, there are challenges with its use. Governments spend heavily on subsidies and companies that extract, transport, and process fossil fuels without equivalent government incentives. It has been hard for renewable energy to really compete. Renewable energy still faces some of the same siting and financing problems as other sources of energy generation. Renewable energy production offers solutions to social problems. Beyond protecting the environment, it can also help offset unemployment due to automation. Surplus cropland in rural communities could be used for solar panels or wind turbines. Leasing land to renewable energy companies is a popular source of income for rural landowners. Recognizing and curbing climate change. What is climate change? The most widely discussed pollutants released from burning fossil fuels are greenhouse gases, which absorb heat and direct it back toward the planet's surface. These are things like carbon dioxide and methane. Um, Warmer air can hold more moisture than cool air, which can lead to heavy storms and flooding. At the same time, warm air causes moisture in the soil to evaporate more quickly, contributing to severe droughts. Climate change is considered more accurate a term than global warming. Global warming was the older term we used for this. But now climate change, because the effects of increased global temperatures are so variable, higher temperatures result in melting glaciers at the Earth's poles and rising sea levels, which threaten coastal cities and islands around the world. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, this is a scientific body established by the United Nations, which provides the most thorough information on climate change. So how do we know it's a problem? It's from the research by this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The IPCC reviews the latest scientific studies on climate change, and it publishes regular reports summarizing the results of the latest research. Scientists, economists, policy experts all work on the research at the IPCC. So where do greenhouse gases come from? Well, some greenhouse gases are necessary for humans to live comfortably or at all on this planet, without which the Earth would be a frozen, uninhabitable place. The problem arises from our rapid and dramatic increase in greenhouse gas emissions since the Industrial Revolution. Deforestation, including clear cutting and burning of forests, for agricultural land also produces CO2. Unlike CO2, this carbon dioxide is CO2. Unlike CO2, however, a major source of methane emissions is industrial agriculture. For example, the digestive process of livestock creates this methane gas. And the problem is how dramatic an increase this has been since the Industrial Revolution. Some of the effects of climate change, the warming ocean temperatures really threaten the habitat of marine life and contribute to increased frequency and severity of catastrophic hurricanes. And some parts of the earth may be too hot for humans to live in by the end of the century. We try to keep the global temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius, or 1.5 degrees is the actual goal. The Paris Climate Agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change. Communities without the infrastructure to handle environmental change are at great risk. A smaller town without storm drains would be more vulnerable to flooding and the diseases that come from stagnant water. The low-lying nations face high risk due to potential sea level rises. The Maldives, for example, is a small island nation in the Indian Ocean that is also the world's lowest lying country. So the effects are expected to fall most harshly on low-income individuals and communities. So what needs to happen is a mitigation and adaptation to climate change. It's too late to stop, but we can do something. Mitigation slows down or reduces the severity of climate change. And some common mitigation strategies include, reducing the demand for energy, developing sustainable energy sources, and protecting large forests that help to absorb atmospheric CO2, carbon dioxide. Adaptation is how we learn to deal with changes caused by increased global temperatures. Strategies include improving infrastructure, resistance to extreme winds and rain, creating and protecting wetlands that can soak up moisture and protect against erosion, building seawalls along vulnerable coastal cities, and planting shade trees to reduce the temperatures in neighborhoods. This concept known as the stabilization wedges. This is an important feature of this stabilization wedge model. It's a model that each wedge can already be achieved with the existing technology. So this is an attempt to deal with climate change in these manageable concrete steps. So there are multiple small steps that can add up to a large impact. So for example, the 8 wedges are increasing. The first one is increasing energy efficiency. Number 2 is waste reduction. 3 is capturing carbon already in the atmosphere. 4, replacing coal with natural gas. 5, increasing nuclear energy. 6, increasing wind energy. 7, increasing solar energy. And 8, land use and agricultural changes. Transportation accounts for 1/3 of the CO2 emissions, which can be reduced by individually. We could try to tackle this by carpooling more often. We can also make a societal impact by working with others to demand that our government require car makers to make more fuel-efficient cars. And B, we could use less air conditioning in our homes in the summer, but by successfully advocating for legislation requiring companies to use more renewable energy and to provide incentives for individuals and businesses to use less energy, will actually make a much wider impact. A technological advancement in agriculture, if we see in terms of food and agriculture, what what's the good and what's the bad. Global population is over 7.5 billion and climbing. And few of us grow our own food. In the US, less than 1% of the population is involved in food production. So inventions like mechanical tractors, threshers, pesticides, and automatic irrigation system have pushed production efficiency to levels that would have been unimaginable in the past. Humans have used animal husbandry and crop breeding for desirable traits such as appealing taste and improved yields and resistance to pests. We can modify DNA of certain foods to be more nutritious and have a longer shelf life and resist pests. Today, hunger is a distribution, not a production problem. And DDT is an effective against mosquitoes to fight malaria, but can cause health crisis. So we need to be careful about what we're using on our food. And if we can modify DNA of certain foods to be more nutritious and have a longer shelf life that can resist pests, we don't need to use those chemical interventions. The most effective pesticides tend to be persistent organic pollutants, or POPs. These are chemicals that won't break down for a long time in the environment, enabling them to build up in the body tissues of animals, particularly predators. The treadmills of production in agriculture, for example, monoculture is this practice of growing only one crop on a farm. It enables a farmer to tune the conditions of a farm to perfectly match the optimal requirements for a specific crop. While increasing crop yields, it makes a farm susceptible to both overproduction and failures of entire crops. So things like soybeans, corn, wheat, these are monocrops. While the industrial livestock operation model, ILO, animal growth is treated like any other commodity and built with an assembly line. This model is more efficient. It is uncomfortable for the animals. Moreover, the dense concentration of animals promotes the spread of disease and the overuse of antibiotics, which harms our entire society. A lot of food means a lot of waste. For example, hog waste, typically stored in large open lagoons, smells very bad. These odors do not simply offend the nose, however. They also damage the environment and people's health. So what are some of the solutions to the problems in the food system? Well, buying food at farmers markets and directly from farmers can reduce the fossil fuel cost of transporting food from far away. And this has the added benefit of keeping money within your local community. Community share agriculture, or community gardens, and farm workers unions can fairly and efficiently allocate fruits of agricultural labor. While individual consumer choices are valuable, they are not enough to make the large-scale changes necessary to truly address problems related to food production. Oftentimes, though, we have to be careful because solutions can often create new problems, and these problems are not often equally shared, which is why we have this area called environmental injustice. Environmental injustice are those who have the least status and power and little access to the positive aspects of production often tend to bear most of the negative social and environmental costs of overproduction. Communities of color, for example, are up to 4 times likely to have hazardous landfills than white communities. What is known as disproportionate siting Our landfills and other environmental hazards are disproportionately cited in these low-income communities because residents in such communities have fewer resources and influence in order to block such moves. Putting this environmental justice or injustice, if you look at the environmental justice movement in the historical context, it began in 1978 when residents of Warren County, North Carolina, organized nonviolent protests. Residents laid themselves down in front of trucks that tried to bring toxic soil into their community in order to oppose that bulk disposal of PCB contaminated oil. PCB is something that causes cancer. The EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, states that environmental justice, quote, will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work, end quote. Unlike traditional research where researchers decide what questions to ask and how to answer them, in community-driven research, scientists ask community members what research questions are important to them and involve the community in data collection, analysis, and dissemination. In fact, we have in sociology environmental sociologists that are specifically concentrating and doing this research and learning more about these issues. Thank you.